right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's 8 o'clock. We will go ahead and officially call this meeting back to order.
Mayor Holland.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Brownlow.
Here.
Commissioner Sanderson.
Here.
Commissioner Sawyer.
Here.
Commissioner Wooten.
Here. Thank you, ma'am. Number 3 be the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Commissioner Sanderson moves. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you. All right, Mr. Zapp, day 1 review when you're ready, sir. Say again. Everything seems louder today.
It's like echoing too.
Yeah.
Good morning. Check, check. We are on our day number 2 of our annual fiscal year 25-26 retreat. And on our agenda, what we wanted to do to start this morning was to review day number 1. So we wanted to talk about what worked well and any adjustments that we need to make. So since we need these pieces of detail to reference more than likely later in our conversation, we're just going to do a quick recap. And I'm going to throw out the first one. We're going to do green for what is good, red for what may need adjustments, but all I heard yesterday was bacon. So I'm going to go with bacon as the top one. I'm going to take, survey says bacon. So what else worked well yesterday, and what might you want to adjust for today?
Excellence in staff preparedness in your presentations. I want to applaud all the department leaders and staff for that. Seemed well prepared, and questions that were asked seemed to get prepared answers. So
Excellent.
thank you all for doing that. Makes it easier.
We stayed focused on hand. We didn't drift. That's the first time in my, I guess, 3 years doing it that we didn't float away somewhere. That was good.
Excellent. Stayed on task. Is that okay?
Yep.
I think taking the tour helped.
Yeah. I also think streaming the meeting was a good addition. A lot of people don't want to come here and sit for 4 hours, can't sit for 4 hours. Might want to take all the information down in more bite-sized pieces. I looked at the town's Facebook page yesterday, and I don't know how long you would have to watch to constitute a view if you hadn't clicked on it, but even like mid-afternoon yesterday, it was over 600 views. So more informed public as a result of that, I'd say.
Perfect.
We already get bacon. Oh, that's right.
Yep. Yeah, we'll get bacon twice, bacon again. Second check for bacon. Anything you want to change? Is the room temperature okay? The room layout okay? Is there anything else from comfort's position? Everything okay?
I was curious, the cameras, can they see these charts here? I didn't know if they're in the right location for.
So what you're seeing on the screen is what's being broadcast. So this chart's being broadcast, and then when they go to the wide angle view, they'll probably see it, but it might be difficult to see the actual writing on there.
Okay.
Which means they'll see you, they may not see all the details that, because when we shoot to that angle. Mark, is it okay to cut to the wide angle so we can give an example? You can see the chart, but you won't be able to read.
Okay.
We're discussing everything that's going on those charts, though, in depth.
And when we do the final cut, what Mark can do is he puts in details and data points. So what we can do is we can even type out, here's what was in the parking lot, here's what was on chart 1, chart 2. So we can do different pieces when we do final edit. Power of media. All right. Anything else you want to do different today? You have your agenda in front of us. Is there anything that we want to expand, contract, or add? And so if there is, now we can throw it out there and we'll make sure we dedicate enough time to get to it before noon. And as a reminder, noon's a spaceholder. It's not, we don't have to run all the way till 12. If we complete it today early, then take recess early. Oh, perfect. There you go. So you zoomed in on it. Look at that. All righty. Well, if you have nothing else, I'll give this marker back and we'll go ahead and get started.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, appreciate you. All righty. First on tap today is going to be the police department conversation. And if Mark Cruz will go ahead and load up the EIPD presentation, and Chief Panzarella and I will walk you through the details and data we have relative to the PD. If you're in your booklet and you're here present with us, it's tab number 6 for a greater detail on the PD. Go ahead. I tore mine off, but if you can just flip it. What you see on this initial slide, and Mike and I will do like we did with Joe, we'll go back and forth and answer any specific questions. For those of you that were in the police car yesterday, seated in the back seat, you got to experience and see what the cage is like. You got to see what the tools were, the mobile data terminals, see what our light systems are like. And if I can, I'm going to go ahead and put Chief Mathias on the spot, and I apologize, Billy. One thing we failed to talk about yesterday in cost savings was the upfit. Would you mind addressing what your team has been doing for the last few years to assist EI and how we're saving dollars and cents with each vehicle?
Yes, so we are able to take, Assistant Chief Edwards touched on it, the lights that are in the vehicles, depending on sunbake and lens, how they look. We're able to take those lights, switch out the brackets depending on the vehicle make, model. So it's a low upfit cost as far as the change out. And now some of those lights are burnt out. We'll try to see if their lenses can be replaced. Anyways, we're doing that internally over at Fire Station 1. And so we're able to pull those vehicles inside a bay, strip them down, which does take a little bit of time because PD is tight with the vehicles as far as they don't have, plentiful ones out there to, say, hey, you can take the equipment out of this one and put it in that one. We have to strip it out of the one we're getting rid of, either wait for the new one to come in or get the new one, then put it in. So it does take a little bit of time on that aspect. But we've been doing that internally for 3 years now, 3 to 4 years now. And so that is one cost savings that we're able to do. Plus, if there's an incident, malfunction of equipment, antenna, connection, anything, they give us a text message, the officers swing it by the station, we take a look at it, more than likely fix it, back on the road,
So what that means in general dollars and cents, that when we would if you would take a raw new vehicle and bring it in and you would send it out to a third party to be upfitted, you're going to see a $6,000 to $10,000 cost no matter what. And so when we're doing it internally, sometimes we can upfit them as low as $2,500, $3,500. So we're saving $4,000, $5,000, and $6,000 depending on the unit. And that is because we're using in-house, regular time staff who crossed over and trained. And that is, I'm not sure of too many other places that are doing it. So we want to thank the team members. But these are on-duty firefighters that have maintenance their equipment, done their PT for the day, and then during the remainder of that shift, they'll tackle the install. So I think that's also something else that we've done by going to that 48-hour shift. It's given that person the ability, if they're on for 2 days, to help relegate and assign their time. So really creative energy by all the department heads to work together and do that. But the other thing that you'll see, and I'll ask Chief to address it, the feedback from the officers on the upfit from the internal upfit versus sending it out. So particularly that F-150 you see in the picture, I know the first time we did one of those trucks and rolled it out, what was the feedback from your staff?
That it's much cleaner and neater. Not to mention, it was done a lot more efficiently. I wasn't down a vehicle in Moorhead, it was right here, in about half the time to install, but definitely cleaner and neater.
If cash wasn't the issue, our third-party vendors all do a great job, but then again, you're buying that $50,000 unit, spending $10,000 to have it installed. So as we talk through what we have today to go through, you'll see that that's why the quality of our vehicles are up. That's why the quality of the installs are up. And I think that we'll say the same in Public Works for safety, lighting, flashers. We're doing a lot of those things internal. So between Public Works, the fire department, and PD, they're really collaborating together. What we're going to talk about this morning is the need to replace 3 vehicles. Currently, we have 3 Dodge Chargers that are 18, 18, and 19-year model respective. One of the 18 Dodge Chargers had an engine failure. We talked about these vehicles needing replacement about a year ago, indicating that we were coming to what would be that transect of dangerous, heavy maintenance, and we crossed over, unfortunately. So the first Charger has an engine failure. The invoice to replace the motor is $8,906. It's sitting on my desk. I refuse to sign that one because we're not going to put $8,900 into a $4,000 car. And so that's why we're standing here today. We know that the second charger is probably days, weeks, or minutes behind it, and the third charger is less than 12 months out. So we're going to talk about each of those vehicles. We'll talk about the service life of those cars, and we'll talk about how many miles are on them. It may be hard to see on the screen, but that's why we have it included in your booklet. This is a run order of all the vehicles that are currently in inventory maintained by the police department. You have one for each officer, then you have a rotationary vehicle, and then you have that spare. And so if you saw the 2013 Taurus, it has celebrated its 12th birthday. And you saw that vehicle is still cranking and running. So that 2013 model has a little over 100,000 miles on it. And so now it's just a running, it's not a joke, but it's more like a running dollar bet to see how far we can drive it. So there's no point in selling it. And we just laugh. It's the little engine that could. So we keep driving that vehicle. And I would, this is public praise, probably because Chief Panzarella drove that car for a long, long time, and he took really good care of it. He's like, I love that car. And I said, Mike, it's getting old. We got to change it up. No, I love that car. So it keeps going. But what we see, normal life cycle on any police cruiser is the 0 to 4 year is usually maintenance limited. It's not maintenance free. 0 to 3 years is usually maintenance free. For some reason, once they start ticking over 36,000 miles, it's because they're idling almost all the time. And it's not the same as a passenger vehicle. So you could go buy a Dodge Charger, you could drive it back and forth to work, you can use it as your family vehicle, and you can put 100,000 miles on it. When you're letting that car idle 10, 11, and 12,000 hours, that's the equivalency of driving that car 200,000 and 300,000 miles, and the engines just fail. And so what we're seeing here, when you look at these vehicles, our goal with the replacement policy program that we have in position was to take the most effective tool at the most cost-effective price and run that unit. Our goal has always been 36 to 48 months, and that's what we did on the change-out with the leases. We're going to talk about Tahoes today, pickup trucks. We've tested all these units, and I want to share with you, when we started the enterprise fleet change-out program, we leased a Tahoe for the then Chief Reese, the SRO, or CRO, Community Resource Officer, and then the fire department had one. And when we leased the two white ones, Enterprise said, these are very resellable. These are a high market value vehicle. You're probably going to do real well on them. We said, well, we want one red one for fire. And Enterprise indicated, they predicted, you're probably going to get a little bit less for red. It's a narrower margin, even though the people that want red will pay for red, but the resale's a little bit lower. So we ran the white, and the red for approximately 36 months. It cost us right around $18,000 to $19,000 in the lease period during that time. And when we resold the Tahoes back at the end of that 36 months, Chief Reese's vehicle brought a rate a little north of $22,000 back, which gave us a profit of near $3,800. The second Tahoe was cash positive, and the third Tahoe was cash positive, but it was a little bit less because it was red. That's the first time in my municipal career we've ever ran a vehicle for free. And we looked at each other and we thought, wow, that was great. The perception or concern at the time was there was going to be a perception we were overspending on vehicles, when in fact we actually broke even and made money on all three of those. So I want to pause there. It's a perception that we're overspending. We're not spending. We are doing what is absolutely critical and best for EI. And we have to work through that conversation today. Because when you run the numbers, the number one and number two, they're tied. Most cost-effective vehicles to invest in today will be a Tahoe and a Silverado pickup truck crew cab. It's because we're buying them so below market value and their resale is so high. So when you plug those two things in together, they're the most cost-effective, and we'll go through all of that. But if you have any questions about any of the vehicles, we can come back to them, we'll answer it. What you have today, you have the legacy issue over the last decade plus. Police departments, state highway patrols, sheriff's departments really leaned in heavy to the Dodge Charger. That four-door Charger was what we call police pursuit vehicle rated, a PPV. Each of the big three had something in the sedan style. So back in the day, it was Crown Vics. Chevrolet Caprices, and then the Dodge Charger. Well, each of those platforms have gone away. There are no sedans available. For some reason, they have eliminated production of all of these units. So our plan originally was when we leased Dodge Chargers, we said those Dodge Chargers would be frontline police officer vehicles. We'll keep them 36 months. We'll get new Dodge Chargers. We'll take all the equipment from Unit A, put it into Unit B, and move on. We attempted to do that, and now they've stopped making the Charger. So actually, you're in a Charger today, correct? We had the last available units on that list. We snagged what was on the ground to try to do that last A to B shift. So we will have 3 to 4 more years with Chargers in our fleet, and there should be 2 or 3 decent ones on that list. The problem is, here you are faced today with what is considered to be a frontline patrol officer's car, 18, 18, and 19 model, and this is where they show 104,000, 82,000, and then in your booklet, I accidentally had a typographical error, and then we didn't want to reprint. So if you'll mark on the third unit, it should be 89,909, plus or minus, because those are all going to change by the day. The bottom line is these units are 80 and 90,000 miles apiece, and we know that once we get to this magic area that they're falling, they're dropping lifters is what they're doing, requiring an engine change. Any questions on the 3 Chargers? There's also alternator issues, AC issues, condenser issues, radiator issues, coolant issues, hose breakage, and then for some reason the fans keep letting go and going through radiators. And that is not an EIPD officer issue. That is a design flaw. So what we have on the next slide, you'll see pictured in the back, is one of the new PPV units that is a Tahoe. So currently what you have are all these choices made available to us. So an Explorer, which there was a black Sheriff's Department Explorer in the parking lot yesterday. If you're familiar, it's not much different than the standard Explorer. You can purchase it Ford for your personal use. But we can buy those units at around $39,000. We can purchase the F-150s that we have in our fleet right around $45,000. A Silverado's a little higher at $47,000. The 2-wheel drive Tahoe's $49,000, and the Durango is the least expensive on the Dodge platform at $40,000. It's very comparable to an Explorer, but that's the initial state bid purchase price. The second column shows the options that will go into that unit to upfit it, giving you a total cost in the center column. Now you'll see that the total cost of a Tahoe may be the highest at the upfront, but these are low estimate resale numbers. So if you go on the lot today to buy a Tahoe or place an order with Chevrolet, any one of us are going to spend between $76,000 and $85,000 for a Tahoe. We can buy it for under $50,000. So initially out of the gate, we have $30,000 of built-in equity. And we're going to try to keep these units, again, 36 to 48 months. We can push them to 60 if we need to because they have a 5-year, 100,000-mile warranty. So if you're reselling these units, and if you pulled up today, you went to Facebook Marketplace, CarMax, Craigslist, whatever platform you want to look at, and you type in a 2020 Tahoe with 55,000 miles, you're not going to find one under $40,000. And so what we're saying is when we resell these are realistic resale numbers on a low side estimate, because what we don't want to do is overshoot. So then you end up with a cost of ownership where you take the total upfitted cost of the vehicle minus what we're going to get for it when we sell it, and then that's what you get in cost of ownership in the right. That cost of ownership should also include, it's going to be very static. There will be additional costs for fuel, for tires, and you may do brakes. That's going to be static for each of those units. The only thing that we did see is in Dodge, the brakes are oftentimes smaller size than you would have brakes more frequent. Tires, if we're on the beach, we're seeing our Jeeps, we're going through tires every 18 to 24 months just because the sand and the low tire pressure. So we have unique pinpoints depending on the type of car. But what the PD needs is they need frontline vehicles. So our next slide is going to show you Mike's recommendations, and I'm going to let Mike speak to why. When we evaluated this wasn't an easy conversation. We met at least 3 to 4 times, intently trying to figure out what will perception be, what will the resale be, but we wanted to bring you all the details, and I'll let Chief speak to what he identified are the needs for the department.
So Assistant Chief Edwards and I initially identified 8 reasons why we feel like the Chevrolet Tahoe is best. It has a higher crash rating. So PPV just means that it has a higher crash rating, and it's safe for emergency response handling. It has a high resale value and a low cost of ownership, increased in recruitment and retention. Believe it or not, new officers coming out today are looking for, and as part of that new generation, they're looking for the best equipment, the best MDT, the best, firearms. So the vehicle really helps in terms of recruitment and retention. Historically, low mechanical issues with the Chevrolet Tahoe. As many of you saw yesterday, increased room in transport. So a lot of things that Assistant Chief Edwards and I have to do with the police department is risk management. Oftentimes, when we're arresting folks, they're not always compliant. So they're combative. So if you could imagine struggling with an individual trying to get them in that Dodge Charger yesterday, you run the risk of, that person injuring themselves, whether by us or by their own fault. I mean, Commissioner Brownlow, I think yesterday, it was a substantial turn when you went to get in, to turn your foot to get in there. It's not like you can just step in there. I'm not one of the biggest guys we've ever arrested, but I struggled getting in and out. If I was handcuffed, there is no way I could physically get in and out of that car. The 5-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. You also noticed yesterday in the back of those Dodge Chargers the way the tires are mounted, and we can't change that. Fire does a really good job of putting our radio modules and stuff up under there in the back. Some of them now have a tray, but that tire is mounted right in the middle. So you saw Officer Wood's car. His rifle was actually in a case to the right of the tire, which in theoretically it should be readily available inside the car. And a 4-wheel drive Tahoe would make whomever that vehicle is assigned to, whichever officer, could immediately access the beach in the event of a water rescue or some type of emergency on the beach.
Any questions for Chief on that initial thought? So we looked at funding options, and we looked at the conversation about whether we should or shouldn't purchase. And so we can continue leases. It's just it's 6 of one, 1/2 dozen of the other. We knew that the palate of the board was to potentially move away from that. So the recommended funding option on anything for 2025-26, you could take and purchase. It would cost us approximately $170,000 for 3 upfitted PPVs. We would encourage keeping those units up to 5 years. Now, there's going to be a magic point, and we can't predict when it'll be. And that's what Enterprise helps us do, whether we own the vehicle or lease it. They run market analysis for us usually twice a year or upon request. So we'll have an assessment done, and they'll tell us, well, you have 3 F-150s that are 36 months old with 35,000 miles. You now can get 7 or 8% higher today than if you hold it another 12 months. And so we've seen that, and we applaud our relationship with Enterprise because they've helped us maximize the surplus sale return. And so when I say up to 60 months, I'm going to be on record at this recording telling you not necessarily 59.5 months. It could be at month 48, it's the best business decision to sell them at month 37. And so if we have these dips in the market like we had where used vehicles were hard to get and that value goes to 60,000 and you can net positive out, we'll come to you and say, pull the trigger today. We can get 3 more of these in replacement. Our goal is to get the highest yield back and spend as close to $0 on maintenance as possible, which is why this is a metric. It's a moving target. That 5-year loan cost would be about $37,500 in the budget. And that is the equivalent of what it used to be to buy 1 cruiser. And so if you have this many units in stock, we used to buy 2 or 3 a year. Sometimes we would go with 1. Most of the time it was 3. And when we started this program in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, I think we were going to buy 3 cruisers was all we could afford. But you're seeing that in the lease program that with the 31 units, we were able to update 50% of our fleet for the cost of 3 annual replacements. And it made business sense to turn those units, which is why we do what we do. So there's the ROI, which means the return on investment. You sell the unit at 60 months or sooner, and you would realize a gain of up to $120,000. If you did this at a 60-month projection today, the estimated cost of ownership would be approximately $11,500 per year. That's what the constituents need to know is we can put 3 certified officers in the best and safest piece of equipment for under $12,000 a year. That equates to about $4,000 a Tahoe. And that's why we as a team, despite the perception that it may be more expensive, wanted to share with you the facts and figures of what it is today, why and how we can buy them, and what 36, 48, and 60 months looks like. So the problem is we have one vehicle that is down. It's blown up and it makes no sense to put money into it. So Mike and I decided we would challenge Chad with scour the country and find what's available on the ground. And he came back at first and he said, there's nothing, we can't find much. So he contacted every one of the state dealership programs individually, and here's what boots on the ground determine. At Capital Chevrolet, there's 1 Silverado, 1 Tahoe, and that Tahoe arrives in March. You can see what's at Hendrick, Modern, Deacon, and Capital. If we were to make a decision to move forward now, it looks like the best choice would be to purchase the 4-wheel drive Tahoe at $53,000. You're buying an $83,000 unit, 30K under. We would look to put the least amount of equipment in it necessary by doing it in-house and control the cost. And that Tahoe would replace the 2018 Charger. So since it needs immediate vehicle replacement, we would ask that can we pull the trigger on this first unit now and budget for the second 2 Chargers to be replaced in July 1. But the purpose is, if we miss the window at Capital Chevrolet, it's going to be months before we can get a build, and that's our serious concern. So we can run the single spare if the board sees that we don't want to make a decision, but staff recommendation is eliminate the failed engine, don't spend any more money on it. We will put it on Gov Deals and sell it as is, has engine tick, and someone will buy it, and we might get $3,000, $4,000 for it, which would help offset the upfit cost in the new one. We would take that cash, put it back in the budget, but it would be purchasing the Capital Chevrolet unit at $53,000. That is if they haven't sold it by the time a decision is made. And so that's what our recommendation is. And so our motion today would be asking the board to consider a PPV Tahoe immediately, budgeting for 2 additional PPVs by 25-26. Does that make logical sense? And we will answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, sir.
So I have a question, and I think the concern is not the cost per vehicle, because I think you guys do a great job of wringing as much value as you can out of each vehicle. I think it's the overall number of vehicles. So if we have 62 now, if everything else was equal, would it be more expensive to have 62 or 58? 58, right?
I want to be as polite as possible. If we need 62 to do the task, we need 62. Anything that you reduce, you can reduce
That's the
10
question.
positions, you can reduce
Yep.
10 cars, but you're reducing the service level in EI. So I know I've answered this multiple times. I don't know how to help the board. If you want to speak to yourselves about that, we're telling you, unfortunately, we're sharing with you, not telling you, this is what is needed to maintain your service level. If you want the service level to change, that's okay. We can reduce the amount of vehicles or the amount of positions, and we were here before. So yes, sir, absolutely. 62 to 58 will be a reduction by X, equitable to what you're paying for those 4.
So didn't you say yesterday you could probably get 20 grand for that 2-door Jeep?
The 2-door Jeep is currently on a lease, and Laura can speak to this because I think we trust her numbers there. Are we around $454, $456 per month on a lease, yes or no? Yes. So you have a lease, and it has, I think if we look at our list, your Jeep has less than 9,000 miles on it, right? 10,000 or so. It's less than 10,000. So if you go to resell it today, whatever they get at the market for it, you're going to get cash back. But the goal is to keep the Jeep that 36 or 48 months when those 2 points cross. then you'll get the highest cash value back. So you can do anything you want, but our return question or volley to you is, how would you anticipate Mr. Seberg to make 750 individual site visits without the Jeep? That's the question.
Take one of the F-150s that's parked down in the rec center.
The rec center F-150s are used daily by the Parks and Recreations Department to do their daily tasks. You can't do both things with the same unit. And I'm not trying to be confrontational, Mr. Wooten. I'm just trying to be very candid and clear. And I think the balance of the board, I'm going to stop speaking because I don't want to come across as negative. I'll let you all have that conversation.
I would like to hear about, from each department, how many vehicles you need to do your mission, and how does that compare to other municipalities seem to get a lot more done, or the same amount done with a lot fewer vehicles.
So if I may, just since you mentioned
Yep.
Parks and Recreation, excuse me, there is currently one truck parked in the parking lot. That's what I mentioned to you yesterday, that employee just started working yesterday. So I'm not immediately going to put him in his own vehicle, but all of our vehicles do get used at Parks and Rec. We're responsible for all 111 water access points that we visit every day, daily basis, all of the parks, the right-of-way mowing. So every vehicle is used. Sometimes I do pair my team members and I send them out to do a certain task, but they do each need their vehicles as they have different responsibilities each and every day.
And in terms of police department, we have 20 full-time officers and 23 vehicles. The one Charger with over 100,000 miles is strictly an admin vehicle for when vehicles go in to have the oil changed or vehicle maintenance. And then my other two are strictly for beach patrol, the full-time beach patrol officers we have in the summertime. But in reality, sometimes those get used as spare vehicles too when I have more than one vehicle down like we're currently dealing with now.
So definitely need a vehicle for planning, because I mean, 700 plus, that's nowhere close to what we were doing previous years as far as site visits. We're going on a daily basis. We're using that vehicle on a daily basis to do site visits, code enforcement, everything that prior to me coming on board, that was instructed to me, we need to ramp up. We need to make sure things are getting done. Not to mention, it's not just a planning department vehicle. It's also used by administration on, when Matt had to go to the mountains, he took that as a vehicle to go up there for that. It is necessary for my department.
Yes, we've got currently we've got 2 Tacomas, 1 Jeep Gladiator. We're waiting on 2 Tacomas to come in. Obviously, that's for protection at the beach strand for the 5 lifeguards that are on the beach strand when we come around to Memorial Day weekend. We have 5 pickup trucks. Aside from that, we have 3 engines. Well, 1 ambulance right now, we're borrowing 1. And so when we look at rotating all that, myself and Chief Coffey, we respond back to emergencies throughout the night, anytime hours. When that wreck happened in July, both of him and I both went to Morehead City to make sure our personnel were okay and to get any other pertinent equipment off that ambulance before it went wherever it was going to go. So as far as our needs, the other pickup trucks are used for emergency response. Currently looking to have one of those pickup trucks on the Peach Strand this summer until we get those Tacomas in place.
So we have 6 vehicles, pickup trucks that are pretty much utilized every day. 2 are dedicated to the beach and some brush cutting and stuff like that. Chad has a vehicle, but like the fire department, he's pretty much on call. We do the on-call, but they don't take a vehicle home. Chad is like the first front line. If they don't answer, then Chad is contacted, so then he's out there responding to our on-calls and stuff like that if they're not available. There's another truck that Chris Hancock uses for parts to run around and get those parts and stuff like that. Randy, he takes care of our pumps and generators and stuff, so he pretty much has his vehicle set up for what he does. Really what we have is And it took us a while to get the vehicles that Artie was always asking, so it took a long time to get the 6 that we have, and I feel like that's perfectly what we have and for what we do to take care of everything that we're doing. I mean, the other 2 people are in the brush trucks and stuff like that, so I feel very confident that the 6 vehicles we have are being utilized and are very necessary for what we're doing.
What, as far as comparing, I keep hearing other municipalities, what's the difference?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I can pull them together for Swansboro.
What's Swansboro, 4,900 people year-round,
Hey,
without an influx of 50,000 people? 2 parks, trash all on the side of the road? Just saying, I mean,
yeah, I'm just saying that 62 vehicles with 72 full-time staff seems like a lot. And as great a job as everybody does already with trying to wring more service with less cost out, I would challenge everybody to figure out, is there a vehicle that you could cut somewhere in the fleet that you have today to continue the same level of service and save 1 or 2 vehicles or reduce the number of vehicles? And that's something we can talk about as we go through routine operations discussions, but it just seems like an awful lot of vehicles for the size of our town.
Chief, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
If one of your Chargers went and then tonight you had a pursuit and one of your cars got wrecked, how many, would you have enough cars for all your officers if 2 of them went down?
Barely.
Barely.
Yes, sir.
So if one officer was involved in a vehicle crash in that pursuit, then you would be down.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely, and who knows for how long, depending on if the vehicle's totaled or not,
Yes.
if it can
Yes,
be
sir.
fixed. Thankfully, we have a good partnership with Sanders Ford, and they do their best to get us back as quickly as they can. The reality is yes, we have almost 200 employees, both full-time and part-time. And 62 vehicles, in the grand scheme of things, is not enough vehicles needed at that point.
Brought up as a comparison, we have the 111 water access points too that Swansboro doesn't have. And we get daily reports of loose boards and weeds growing and things like that that we have to respond to in order for the safety of those walkways, to be compliant. And I will say, keep in mind too, we did reduce a vehicle out of parks by moving the Jeep over to the planning department.
Each one of you spoken, and it sounds like you need, for your job to do the job, you've got what you need to do it with. And if we chop it, then you're not gonna have the capabilities of completing your job like we need. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. If I'm not hearing that, please speak up now. And that's the thing here,
That's what I'm hearing as well.
we gotta support you, to do your job, because we demand certain things to happen, so just, if that's not the case, please speak up.
Well, I just know the vehicles have been a conversation, and it's 62 or 68. I remember when we were running, it was 104 were too many vehicles, but there were never 104. There was just 64 at the time. So the numbers have, but at the end of the day, we're taking 3 old vehicles and replacing it with 3 new vehicles. We're not going from 62 vehicles to 65 vehicles.
I make a motion to authorize staff to locate a PPV Tahoe immediately and budget for 2 additional Tahoe PPVs in the fiscal year 25-26 draft budget.
All right, Commissioner Sanderson has the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Thank you so
carried
much.
3-2. Thank you.
The only reason why I opposed, I did get the vehicles yesterday. I'm not disputing that there's a need to replace vehicles, but I got the budget packet like on Friday night after 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, something like that. And I just didn't have enough time. I wanted to do a comparison on other municipalities, like Carolina Beach has about similar amount of area that we have, similar population. And I just haven't had a chance to really go through and do the comparisons, but that's, but I'm not going to dispute that we need to replace some vehicles.
Thanks, sir.
And the reason I voted yes, because town staff said you need it to do your job, and I'm supporting you as town staff. And if you say you need a job and we can handle it, this commissioner's gonna cover you. So I trust your ability to make the right choice, and I'm here to support you. So thank you.
All right. What's next? You get back to me. Hey. All right, unless I'm mistaken, Mark Cruz with a social media PIO update would be next. Sorry, it took me a minute to get back to it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit deeper dive into the statistics and information that I've been able to gather through the media efforts. I do consider it an honor to help archive and tell the story of Emerald Isle. And so I just thank you for that opportunity, and we'll get started. So the trend of content and social media and media in general is as you can read this statistic from the Pew Research Center, is that social media dominated media consumption with 63% of total time spent on digital platforms. And so that's roughly 2/3 of overall media use. And in all of our efforts that we're doing here, we're seeing growth on all of our platforms. I've captured two data points here for our Facebook audience. Since I think this is a little bit over a year ago, but we've seen an increase of 269% as far as our followers. And on Instagram, you can see that our reach has gone up 100% and our content interactions have gone up 100%. The demographics, this is pulled from Facebook, but that's our biggest platform and that's our easiest place to get the demographics for, is 35 to 55 years old, 74% women, 22% men. The top communities that are engaging with our content is Raleigh, Emerald Isle, and then the surrounding communities, which include Swansboro, Cedar Point, Morehead City, just in the whole general area. This is our website analytics. The first one is the devices that the content is being consumed on. So we pull these numbers. So mobile devices is the top device that people are looking at our website at 61%. Then desktop comes in at 36%. Then tablet is 2.2%. We were also able to pull the top pages viewed, and I believe we shared an email with everyone that went to this, a Google Analytic where you can customize it. But as you can see, the home page is the page that everyone lands on, so of course that one's going to be the most. But the cameras obviously is a popular one at 67,000, and what's really, really important in my viewpoint is that we had 51,471 views of the beach warning flag system. So people are coming to our website to find out what the flags are and gather other information, because there's a lot of information on that page about safety. So And you can kind of read the other ones, but I just thought those top three were the most important. So now this next section, I'd like to thank all the department heads because they are doing a great job, and all the staff. They're also doing a great job within their realms of what they do every day. And so I asked some of the department heads to tell me how my efforts are helping them. And so that's what this next section is. But it's just a small part to play because obviously they are doing a great job at what they're doing. And so I'm just a part of this. So this is not all about me. So the Emerald Isle Police Department, we ramped up the car show advertisement and postings. And so you can kind of see from 2003, they had 70 participants to 2024 is 130, so almost double. I was unable to get an exact number for the Neighborhood Watch Pancake Breakfast, but they did tell us that it was the past years it's just increasing and increasing. And then when we advertise for the police educating the public events, we see an increase of about 15 to 20 participants. And then there again, the police are doing a great job. It's just me supporting them. So, okay. So the Parks and Recs Department, through all the social media posts, we've seen an increase in park visits and engagement. This was a big one. The marathon attendance increased by 22% compared to 2023. We've eliminated I'm sure this is a lot. Candace didn't tell me how many, but I can imagine that the request for the photos, like, oh, did you get my picture coming across the finish line, that kind of thing. So we put all that together. We package it. We make it available. We share it to everyone that's part of the race. And then we've seen, all the attendance for all the other events stay steady, and which is good. And then, just by posting about the construction updates, we've reduced that workload on them for people calling, asking, allowing them to do their other jobs. And they do a great job there too. So this is just, me just supporting them. Now the fire department. So we've helped them by, increasing the general safety topics. So we've produced top 10 beach safety videos, beach regulations. So we've been seeing a lot of views on those videos. Focus on addressing community risk and providing prevention education. We did a piece with the smoke alarm Saturday, the turkey fryer video. I don't know if you got was a popular one. And the Christmas tree fire one, that was another fun one. But the next stat there, or the next bit of information, I think is really crucial. That all of these efforts, all the postings, the beach flag videos, just the constant bombardment of safety information, is improving our community insurance rating, which is assessed every 5 to 7 years. And I talked to the chief about it yesterday, and I believe that affects if you want to share on that.
So that is those results and those views from those safety messages, beach flags, turkey fryer, all of that goes back to community risk reduction. And so North Carolina DOI, Department of Insurance, is the NCOSFM, Office of State Fire Marshal, is within Department of Insurance in North Carolina. And so every 5 to 7 years, the fire department is graded. We had that grading back in 2021, so we're expecting it here probably in 2026, 2027. Early things is probably coming into this year, into the beginning of next year from the state. But the state has shifted their focus. Rather than putting out the fires and how effective we were putting out the fires, they wanted to see what we were doing on the prevention aspect. And so these messages going out, that Mark has done an excellent job in taking a little bit of that weight off my shoulders. Still waking up at 4 a.m., go to the gym and checking the NOAA forecast and and/or coming over here on the weekends and taking a look with my own eyes at the beach strand before we make that decision, those texts that y'all get, or emails, that's all still being generated, but that's helping our residential fire insurance and our commercial fire insurance.
Thank you, Chief. So that's, when I hear things like that, it makes it feel like we're making a difference. So, and despite our local population of around 4,000, obviously our social shows that there's a lot more people that are invested in Emerald Isle and love Emerald Isle. And then, just the messaging that we're trying to do is focusing on our local folks, but then we're also thinking about the visitors, which are obviously super important to our town. And this was exciting. So, and that should be a little bit higher because we just had another payment come in, but we earned $1,258 from the content on Facebook. So just from our postings, we're, earning revenue, and as those will stay up and continue to earn revenue. So it's kind of like digital real estate, if you kind of look at it in that point of view. So, and I always like to get emails from Laura when those notices come in. So make Laura happy. That's what we all try to do. All right, this was the most viewed video. This piece was done about Josh and Paul's efforts to help the folks in Western North Carolina. You can see, and I know they were a little reluctant. They weren't 100% on board with doing it, but hopefully it wasn't too bad for them. I tried to make you guys look good. But we got 21,000, almost 22,000 views, and then almost 15,000 reach. So the reach is the actual number of people, and then the views are people are like watching it again. So, and then our most viewed post is the bridge coming over to Emerald Isle, and it was just inviting people to come over here, even though it's a cold winter day. We had 80,000 views and reached 63,000 people. And that's everything. Thank you for your time. Do you guys have any questions?
Mark, thank you.
Great job, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
What social media platforms does the town go out on?
We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X, or Twitter, and we are currently still on TikTok, but I'm not sure because what all's happening with the government ban on that one, if an American company is going to buy it or not.
We're on TikTok.
Sir?
Are we on TikTok?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we are on TikTok. Yes, sir.
But there's a government ban, right? Government ban.
Yeah, it's pending.
Yeah, there's a pending ban. If an American company doesn't buy TikTok,
from China.
then it'll go away. Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Cruz?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All right. Matt, Laura, FEMA-related repairs and purchases.
I really am. I'm gonna miss my TikTok.
You need to buy it.
I'm gonna miss my TikTok.
All right, so Laura and I did rock, scissors, paper. I lost on 4 out of 5 turns, so I have to update you on A through D. She's only taking E. I said you'd much rather hear from her. But, so we've addressed the majority of these. I'm going to keep them very high level and just let you know where we are. So we are still pending a Reed and Cedar Street drainage repair authorization from FEMA. Again, the delay, if asked, it's not internal, it's not our design. We're awaiting a green light from FEMA so that we can complete bid and perform the tasks at Reed, which is East Reed, and also at Cedar Street drainage. Are there any questions from the board members to any of the team? Joe and I, Chad, Laura, we can answer any questions that you have about item A, what the delay is with Reed and Cedar. Again, that's 100% FEMA 428 funded and won't cost the local taxpayers any money. Item B, we're
Matt,
very,
on the FEMA 428, does that cash come in advance when we apply for a grant, or do we have to wait for that cash to come in?
These are all reimbursement, so that's part of the letter E. I'll get into that. That's a great question. So we have to upfront all that cash. We're turning in reimbursement requests. Well, I'll just jump into E a little bit. But we're turning our reimbursement request about once every month, and then the state takes around 60 days to get that money back to us. That's on a normal routine at fiscal year end. It has slowed down in the past, and usually when that happens, I start picking up my phone.
What's the longest that we've had to go before we got reimbursed on that?
12 months. And so that's part of the discussion that we wanted to make sure that we remind and keep talking about, because we may want to go ahead and do a short-term borrowing to cover that. And that was in my letter E, and we can start with that if you like. I can go in reverse order.
And when we take that, is that coming out of our general fund or debt service?
General fund, not debt service. So just general fund, so fund balance. So our fund balance, our reserves, yes, sir. Yep. And that's important, and we've known that, and we've been approaching that. When we had our beach nourishment project, the beach commission gave us that cash up front for us, so we didn't have to deplete our own fund balance. And that was a 0% interest loan between Carteret County and the town of Emerald Isle. And so short term, as soon as that reimbursement came, we just gave it right back to the county. Cool. So that's, the grants are wonderful, but it's nice to have that fund balance to cover that, to, while you're waiting for those reimbursements.
In case the next disaster happens?
Yes. And that was something, when Hurricane Helene came through, that was one of the immediate comments. The state sometimes will have some loans available if something really catastrophic like that happens, where you can have that cash flow covered. So that's the purpose. I'm kind of jumping on the topics. I think it was two-part. One, to talk about the construction and the status of the projects, and then from my vantage point, I just wanted to talk about the money side of things. The flow of reimbursements, that lengthy process, is in that bottom bullet at the bottom of the slide, project closeout. It's a process. So once you reach 75% of the total grant, the state says, okay, you're at that 75 max. We're going to hold any reimbursements. You have to finish construction, and then you have to close out the administrative process of the grant, and that's what takes so long. Our side is, we're queuing it up, but we have to, kind of close out, resubmit everything, say, this is it, we're done. We're going to claim $1,481,245.10 or whatever, right to the penny. So we close that out, and then it goes through a final FEMA process where it's, I think, due to staffing perhaps, it takes a while. And that's when they'll release that final 25%. So we have a waiting period where we're holding that 25%. And so the figures there, those are all of our grants. Grand total, $10,363,428. We should be reimbursed $7,772,571, and then we would have that 25% waiting. The thing about these is they may not all coincide on the same date. And so we wanted to talk about it, and then, be mindful as those projects are going through to see about perhaps getting a short-term loan while we're waiting for that reimbursement. Almost like a grant anticipation note, if you will. So, and that was my letter E. So, but I can, sorry, I'm a little bit, hold on for a second. And this slide, I'll just kind of finish up. So right now, for example, we, the biggest cash requirement of our projects is the generators and beach access walkways. Right now, we've spent $583,971 as of today. I'm not sure if we're going to get that by fiscal year, and I'm trying really hard monitoring that, making sure that may go up a little. Well, that will go up a little bit because of the beach access walkways, and we have enough fund balance to cover that at fiscal year if we need to. But we're hopeful that that'll get reimbursed. The rest of the grants are fully reimbursed at the moment. But the big ticket items, when those projects line up, the fire engines and the ambulances, when that bill comes due, that's a $2.5 million cash disbursement, so we're going to watch that. And that would probably be the timing when we would come in the fall potentially for a short-term note. And then the dune infiltration system and the fire station are the other two very large projects. Those, however, because they're going to be long-term constructions as opposed to a delivery date where the bill is due, we'll be getting those reimbursements every 60 days. So we'll just kind of monitor that, and then we want to only borrow, as little amount as what we need. We want to limit that, so.
Laura, didn't we, like on the, it's called the blue tab, didn't we run into a situation like that last year at fiscal year end? We were waiting for a reimbursement that comes a few $100,000. I don't remember exactly how much, but it skewed our
It did.
number
yes.
a little bit, state required balance. I mean, we were able to add it back in. Technically, we didn't have it in-house, but it was coming, so.
That's right.
Something
So
similar,
in
right?
fiscal '23, June 2023, we were about 600,000. Let's set my papers down. I've got too much stuff in my hand. I think it was 600,000. We had spent it down. And so we did that. That brought our fund balance threshold at the state level right below the 25%. I think we were right at 23. We're close, but it didn't hit the mark. And so we had to respond to the state and let them know why. And we have, traditionally no problems with fund balance, and we illustrated that. And then we also have our large fund balance with Future Beach Nourishment, and we had the grant coming in, and they were satisfied with our explanation. It was just at that point in time, and the money had come in 2 months later, so they were satisfied with that response.
No error on the finance department's part, just a hurry up and wait.
Yes. So, yes.
Thank you.
Any other financial questions? I'm just going to go over the timeline for construction. So item A, we've already covered. Item B, we covered yesterday, that we have 14 acted. We had 13 granted and 1 donated, so we are 50% of the way of our beach access walkways. And as Candace indicated, that we have a total of in excess of 100 public access points, of which we have nearly 80 constructed units. So we have a lot of moving pieces. And so the bigger conversation, I'm going to take this opportunity. We'll take 5 minutes or so, Mayor, if it's okay. Does the board want us to consider replacement of any additional walkways in this fiscal year budget, being 1, 2, or 3 walkways? In the past, we had budgeted for 3. When they used to be $30,000 a piece, we would put in $90,000 was the most recent, a few years ago. We didn't do that in those fiscal years, and we racked up these 14 units that are going to be taken out and replaced. So now we're back on a normalized schedule. So coming into fiscal year 25-26, would you like to have a small conversation about what is your perception for staying on the maintenance replacement of your constructed beach access walkways? Would you like to include 1, 2, or 3? And if you want to, we would give you that estimated cost. Depending on the length of the unit, it's going to be approximately $50,000 to $60,000 per unit.
I think it's important that we maintain that. I mean, we see where we landed when we let it go for 4 years. We had walkways that were in really poor condition that we were putting Band-Aids on. And that was our fault, because they should have been rebuilt. They were graded at a level that said they should have been rebuilt, but there was no funding for them. And I understand that, as the board had to make hard choices, but the beach is our biggest asset.
While you're addressing that, since we were in that conversation together, that's when the walkway went from $30,000 in materials.
Correct.
To $82,500 for one. The cost of the walkway nearly tripled, which made it very problematic for us to balance. So now that those numbers for construction materials have come back down, it's still almost a 2x factor,
Yep.
but thank you for bringing that up. And so now knowing that number, I think a good solid budgetary number based on lineal footage would be a round figure of 50,000 a unit. So if 1 equals 50, would you like to include 1, 2, or 3 like we had been doing in the past? Thank you.
Mine would be a minimum of 2, and the reason I'm saying that is right before I left, and Candace followed up on this as well as Matt and some others, but we looked at it completely different. It was a total redesign of our walkways. What's being used now is a far more durable and efficient product that's not going to require the maintenance that has been required in the past. It's going to withstand the weather, all the elements that it's exposed to. It's going to, in my opinion, stand up much longer. And that whole re-engineered design is a reason. And I think that if we're not doing the public justice if we don't continue with a minimum of 2 per year.
Yeah, I agree with Alicia. I mean, the beach is our greatest asset. It's the reason we're all here, and that's a priority.
I'd like to be able to see if we could construct that ramp at Black Skimmer too, or possibly the one down at the Dog Leg also.
We're talking about pedestrian access right now, and adding those, is that correct?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Because people use the vehicle ramps as accesses. And for safety, I think it'd be good to get them off the ramp and onto an access.
I'm going to put Joe on the spot. I think that Black Skimmer was a $62,500 cost when we looked at the last construction, put the walkways in. Was that?
That is about correct, yes.
Yeah, ringing the bell. So that would be an additional, you can want to, I would assume today that the safe number would be to continue to estimate about $65,000 for pedestrian access at those locations.
Well, if we do those, then I want to see that addressed separately, because I think it's just extremely important that we continue with replacement of at least 2 per year. I'm not opposed to adding additional new, but I think that it's imperative that we replace at least 2 per year.
So Mayor, this is your ball to volley. How would you like to handle it? Would you want to discuss first replacement is what my recommendation would be, and then you can bring up the should we include additional as a second.
I was about to ask staff, what exactly do you need from the board?
We need motions.
I'll make a motion that we repair at least 2 beach accesses a year if needed, or as needed.
All right, Commissioner Brownlow with the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Carry 2, please, sir.
Hey Candace, question while he's writing. What, on that new product that we're using, when was the first year that we put that out? How long has that been now? That new engineered wood?
So Alicia actually did one prior to her retirement.
Just before, so it was early 22.
Was that not Howe Street?
Fair.
But that was about the timeline. And then when we had the dedicated walkway, that was the second one that was installed. And then ever since then, we've had 6, and we've received nothing but compliments. And I would anticipate these are going to last 20-plus years with the material that we're using.
The decking is the same thing that you see at Island Harbor Marina. And we all see how well that's held up.
Like composite hog slide or something?
It's, no, what's it called?
It's called Sure Step.
Sure Step, thank you. So it's not slippery, it doesn't,
Yeah, it's
you
good
know,
stuff, yeah.
there's not the same risk as there is with Trex or traditional wood.
So we're using a 1x6 sure step material, a stainless steel screw to hold the sure step into the cross beams, and we've eliminated any natural hand railing to include a composite handrail top cap, so that when that happens where you're putting your hand, it's splinter free. And so we're also looking at kickboards that are a composite material for appearance and durability. The only negative I see in our current design that we should seriously consider over time is we're continuing to use vertical pickets, which are aesthetically appealing, but they don't last. And so there are options that we can do. Oh, good job, Chris. Open your, go to your cover of your booklet. You're the man, Chris. Nice. There you have it. There's your image on the cover of your booklet. So you can see exactly what we're doing. Those are the improvements that we're making, but the aesthetic appeal of the pickets is right now, as the turn of phrase is, the juice is worth the squeeze, but we can probably do better there when more composite material pricing comes down, so.
It's like ranch style railing, as long as you don't have that 6-inch opening greater than 6 inches.
We looked at ranch style.
We get hung by the public when we do that.
Yeah,
I tried.
that was the serious concern. We talked about that at great length.
Hated it.
We agree with you. It's the easier install and it lasts longer, but your generalized public, if you think your phone has rung so far, our prediction is it would probably ring a lot. Not that it's not the right decision to make, it's the palate of the team to take the call. You're absolutely right, sir. It works, it looks good, but people.
What were the complaints? Because it opens up the view even.
No, it blocks the view according to the people who are using it.
Yeah, just from experience. But just sharing that intel with you, that those were the calls that we got.
We built the first series of those when we did the first round of beach nourishment with all the walkways, the dune crossovers we had to build, especially down on the eastern end. And everyone hated it. Not that they have something to walk on now besides sand, but they hated it.
But we also looked at the stainless steel cabling, which would improve the view, and we looked at cost versus benefit. So we've ran the analytics on all of them, and when you extrapolate those out, Jen can tell you because she did the spreadsheeting. So when you make one change, you think, oh, well, that's a few dollars, and when you multiply it out, it ends up being millions of dollars. So what we were looking at on the bump outs was the importance of the cabling, because when you're on a bump out and somebody may have a mobile issue, and say they're seated, they can tend to see through. We looked at all those choices and changes. We continuously look at those options as well.
Matt, or Candace, maybe, I'm not sure, but also, I know we added, when you step down on the beach, and this is a great picture to look at too, the rope and poles there to protect the sand dunes. How are those holding up? Do we need to continue those? I know when we first did that, we were sanding the beach out and redoing the sand dunes, and I went and watched, and when one was put up, it was great, but when they wasn't there, it was like it was a huge, people walking all over the sand dunes. So I just want to see how that's holding together. Do we need to focus on that also?
No, so my team, when they go out on a walkway, they check all of those as well. They're holding up really well unless someone goes out and purposely tries to kick them over or remove them, and then we go back out and replace them, but they're holding up very well.
All right, thanks.
So Mayor, would you like to address the second request of, are we going to account for black skimmer, or are we going to account for black skimmer in the dog leg on new construction of pedestrian access in FY 25-26?
Yeah, Commissioner Brownlow, want to talk about it? I'm happy to let the board have that discussion, absolutely.
Yeah, even if we just did one a year, one this year, one next year, or something. But I think the one at Black Skimmer would probably be used more than the one at Dog Lake. But it's rolling down that end of town too, so.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing one at Black Skimmer. I thought we were doing one last year. I think we ran into some obstacle.
It was CAMA obstacles, wasn't it?
Yeah, wasn't there a camo?
It was cost. Well, it was the
Was it
grant
cost
that
or-
CAMA was concerned about the repair on the Hatteras ramp, the beach ramp.
Okay.
This is for pedestrian access.
I thought we were gonna have to take out the dune. Go ahead.
It's gonna have to be put on the opposite side.
So when we met out with CAMA, that was their issue, because we were gonna do a footpath, but the footpath would have been, we weren't allowed to remove any vegetation, we weren't allowed to knock down any dunes, so it would have to be all natural, so, that's when I think we decided that it really wasn't worth doing all that, then that we would further table it to like this year or whatever to see if you wanted to build the walkway or get pricing on construction of the walkway. And yes, we did fix the ramp and.
But the walkway would be natural, it wouldn't be a walkway.
The original walkway, we talked about two options, a footpath, let me put it as a footpath that they would walk, and then there was the quote to do a actual walkway, which was like the 65.
Structural access way.
Yeah, construction.
And Campbell was good with that.
Yeah, it would have to be raised over the dunes and through that footprint and stuff like
So
that.
that's going to require multiple steps, Joe?
Yeah, because we're not allowed, if, Roy can
topography.
back me up on that, because I don't think we're allowed to touch any of the dunes
That's
or
right.
knock any of them down. You have to build it above the dunes that are there.
So that is what we have in writing from Camlin. If you recall, the proposed width was only 4 feet, not 6. So I believe the estimate was 4 feet wide. We're going to use the 1x4 sure step style materials. There will be steps at the start. It will have to be elevated to a degree, I think it was 6, 7, or 8 feet high. Then it can run straight, then it's going to have steps down. So we want you to be very clear on your expectations. And what we will do, if you vote to pursue this again and get a budgetary number and include it, we will call our existing contractor, we'll get exact measurements, and we'll have them supply us an estimate because they are right now one of the most cost-effective. And I think that would be step number one for you. But if you'd like us to include it, I believe we're limited to 4 feet wide to keep the vehicular access moving in and out, and a CAMA does require a permit for us to do that.
I make a motion that be included in the draft budget. We can look at it in the big picture after that.
All right, motion to include pedestrian walkway at Black Skimmer in the draft budget by Commissioner Sanderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
I know it.
People are gonna walk right down the path, walk that way.
Pull the wagon down.
Exactly.
All right, thank you very much. Continuing on, item C is the Lands End dune infiltration, which was scheduled to be fourth quarter of 25 and first quarter of 26. Now, if you don't mind, we'll strike that out. We have to have the conversation with the Lands End HOA board, and it looks like construction cannot start till at least Q4 of 2026, so it would be through this time of next year. More than likely, construction would occur between December 1 and February 15th would be that 6 to 8 week window, more than likely headed into 10 weeks depending on weather. So need to do that to avoid obstructions with environment and animals, being specifically turtle nesting period. So we can do that in the winter time of next year, but we do have to satisfy all the questions that are coming out of Lands End. And we have on, again, multiple occasions requested to meet with the board, and we're still trying to nail down a time to do that. And what we'll do is bring in our engineer, Greg Thompson from Summit Engineering, to answer to their satisfaction all the questions pertaining to Lands End. To recap that project, what it would be doing is taking water that's currently being pumped up Coast Guard Road and emptied into EI Woods, and it will take that water to the dune system, very similar to a large septic style tank, and there's segments of that tank. Water would be pumped in there, and then it would, sediment would pump out, and the water would get back into the ground at that point. And that's the general process for Lands End. Our staff has worked very intimately, and I know Joe and Chad have worked hard with the Lands End, what we call their ponds team. They have multiple ponds that move water throughout their system. They're highly concerned that the system isn't large enough, but by sheer volume of calculations it is. It has a secondary and a tertiary option in the event that this fails, that fails, this fails. So we've answered their questions and we want to continue to do so, but until they accept the project, we can't move forward. Any questions about item C? So Fire Station 2 on the rebuild, Chief and I can take any questions that you have, and Laura on the financing side, but we're currently in a design build contract, and that we will work through this process. And Chief, if you want to elaborate on what you anticipate that timeline to look like, since you're doing all the heavy lifting, tell the folks roughly what your concepting would be and what your potential, how much work you think we could get done this budget cycle, and when will the big scissors be busted out at Fire Station 2?
So currently we have a contract posed back to the contractor. So what we're trying to do down there is, one, take into account safety. Obviously, a current situation, if you're not aware, we combined it fire and EMS 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago now. So we've got 4 people living in about 800, 900 square feet, and they rotate out. So there's a little bit of hot bunking. There's some cramped quarters. I've done some things to try to keep them, at odds down there currently. So that's our current situation. 2 bays, both of them are back in. They have to back in off of 58 Emerald Drive. So trying to look at safety, we're looking to put 3 bays down there so they can come in off of Emerald Drive, turn into a large to the east ramp, and then back into the quarters. So the actual apparatus bays will face east, and that's due to trying to keep the southwest breeze and all that salt air off our radiators and off our apparatus to try to preserve those pieces of assets. We've seen some radiators go out throughout the years, especially my years being here. About $7,000, $8,000 was the last one, and that was in the 2014 fire engine that our newest engine, should I say. So then we're looking to have 5 bunking quarters, 3 beds per bunk. That way each shift could rotate in there, and also that 5 would be down the road when I'm not here, when y'all aren't here, the additional staffing, or in the meantime, when we staff up for emergency events, hurricanes, natural disasters, we have a place to lay additional heads in there. That would have a hot, warm, and cold zone built into it, so the firefighters come back from a call, they go into a warm zone for decon. Big thing in the fire service right now is cancer reduction. And so trying to limit those carcinogens that come back with us, whether it be on our skin, whether it be on our turnout gear, they would be able to go to this medium zone or warm zone, take a shower, change clothes, fully, get clean before they come back into the living quarters or the bunking area. And so that passed on year after year after year. So that bill currently is looking about 9,500 square footage is what we're trying to accomplish down there. But as far as the big golden scissors and getting, Mayor Holland back on a video for ribbon cutting, hopefully it will be 12 to 14 months from this month. That all depends on when that contract is fully stamped, sealed, and across the finish line. Did I miss anything out?
No, the only thing is because it is a grant, because the requirements of FEMA, another kind of qualification of the FEMA grant is the equipment grants are fairly easy. They're approved. We're ready to rock and roll. When we disturb land, we have to go back through another process of review. So every ground disturbance, whether it's stormwater, or building structures. That is what some of our grant timeline is taking long, because if we make a change, they were very, very clear. They said, if you touch the ground, if you move that 2 feet, we got to go through and look at it again and approve it again. So that's some of the, if we have those design changes, that'll be, it's not on the town's side. We're trying to get those changes to them as quickly as we can, but I just wanted to mention that grant process if you see a delay. So if there's a scope change, we have to go back.
Thank you. Anybody have questions for Chief or Laura regarding the firehouse? Thank you very much.
Fire pole?
It's not ADA compliant.
No fire pole. All right, you've already covered E. Any other FEMA-related repair purchase questions from the board for Matt, Laura, Chief, Billy, anybody? All right, if not, we're going to take a 15-minute break, 9:25 now. Oh, no, I said we're taking a break. No. What you got?
It's only 9:25. If you want, Billy can present his data and we can push right through. It's up to you. We're on standby, ready to go.
All right, are you guys ready to go? Let's go.
I'm gonna
Let's go with it.
Chief's gonna keep it tight.
Go ahead.
I won't call out who just got some more bacon, but
Bacon, man.
it was not me.
We got to honor the top of the list.
I didn't see that up there. All right, so after yesterday's meeting, I went back, so revenues was a big thing. This is not in my slideshow. But currently from July 1, the revenue that comes out of the fire department for EMS transports, we've recouped $216,000, rounded to the closest number. Our billing company has charged right at $350,000 as far as their charges are concerned. And so that takes a little bit of time to roll out, but as far as comparing those to previous years, that's a pretty good turnaround as far as our billing company staying on top. So performance eval on them, great job. So with this presentation, we're looking at the data metrics, overall fire and EMS operations, our ocean rescue operations, and then future safety issues. And so when we look at this one here, this is for our calendar year 2024. You can see there 2022, 23, 24. So in 24, we have those 1,573 calls. That's total incidents that we received across 911. Those are service calls. 937 of those were EMS calls, so emergency medical services. Of those 937, 584 were transports. So that's where our crews transported somebody to Naval, Carolina East, Carteret Carteret Healthcare. 20 of those were actual fire incidents. So vegetation fires, car fires, structural fires, commercial fire in May was a kicker. And then 97 being ocean rescue incidents. And I say that because when we get to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about that. 519 as other services. Those other services is a combination of alarms, lock-in, lock-outs, missing persons where we assist PD, because most of the times they come across on the beach strand, and it takes a majority of emergency services to find somebody on that beach strand. Similar calls of that nature kind of lump into other services, and they're all broke down. Just to keep this chart as simple as possible, lump those together. The big ones being, your fire incidents, in our transports, and EMS calls. More data, metrics. We have 3 fire inspectors. So those 3 fire inspectors are certified with the state. They go out to all of our commercial businesses here in Emerald Isle annually. Sometimes you may see them more than that, but that's for reinspection. So they're checking up on those violations, making sure those extinguishers are in place. And again, we're not there to give you a citation. We're there for education. We understand that our business owners are running a business and things do get forgotten. Summer season gets upon us and it is 100 miles an hour. So they completed 454 commercial fire inspections last year, okay? Whether that would be new businesses coming into old spaces that somebody has moved out. And a big one on that is our food trucks. So food trucks are wrapped up into that number as well. And those are inspected annually as well. 16 cardiac arrests that we have through a biospatial software that the state allows us to utilize. Of those 16 cardiac arrests, we had 20% ROSC. So that's return of spontaneous circulation. So that's what we're hoping for. When we're doing that CPR and we're doing all that heavy lifting, so to speak, during those times, we've got a 20% success rate when it comes to actual cardiac arrests. National average of ROSC is 30% across the nation. Lack of oxygen for longer than 4 to 6 minutes, you start having some very long-lasting issues in those patients. So obviously we want to keep that number on our minds where we can get quicker service to people who are experiencing these unfortunate events. So moving to the next number, we said 97 ocean rescues in our summer 2024. Out of those 97, there was actually 165 people either pulled from fire department response and ocean rescue response personnel, okay, off our beach strand. That is either rip current initiated, where they actually got pulled out, large surf, where you get those thunder clappers that you all can hear from Emerald Drive, but somebody still decides to go out there and enjoy the Atlantic Ocean. Overestimation of ability and flotation devices. So while flotation devices are a great thing to see, they also get people in trouble as well. It is unfortunate that we did have that one fatality on July 26th of 2024. Again, down in the 1600 block. So I track all of these to see if we're starting having a new hotspot develop each year. All of our water rescues, these unfortunate events. Out of our summer 2024 season, March 29th through October 31st, 148 yellow flags and 69 red flag days. Okay, and that was how the day started. So if it flipped from yellow to red that day, it's still recorded as a yellow flag day. So I mentioned yesterday, talking about the RMS system. Our new RMS system, and as you see up there, the dates, October 1 through January 7th, which is when I put this presentation together, we've had 301 incidents. And you'll see some across the bridge as well, because we help out our neighboring departments. We like to track this when we're talking about our service level, okay? Fire and EMS, ocean rescue, we're tracking where these calls are coming in, where we're responding to a lot of. On top of that, we're tracking the response time. So going back to that 4 to 6 minutes for Ross, if somebody's having a cardiac arrest, we're wanting to look at how long it's taken us down to get to certain areas. If you can look there, you can see it in your binders, the red dots, that's Fire Station 2 currently and Fire Station 1 currently. Okay, that's where our ambulances are at, that's where our fire engines are at, that's where your jet skis, as I call the cavalry, is coming from. During our summer season, we have the lifeguards on the beach strand, and that is the first line of defense, and even further before that is our local surfing community on that beach strand. But this kind of paints a picture of where our responses are at, where our neighborhoods are at, where our permanent population may be at. Again, October 1 through January 7th, okay? We're not in the middle of the seasonal time yet. So this is, again, part of that biospatula data that we can use from the state. This is tracking our incident calls when it comes across as EMS. So this was for the calendar year 2024. And the big thing I want to point out, oh, it did work, is right down there, Coast Guard Road. So that is the number of calls that we've had during 2024 for EMS service only, okay, to Coast Guard Road. That's a big one. That response time down there is plus 9 minutes to over 15 minutes. So if we're trying to provide service for EMS, we're hard pressed. Okay, we better have an ambulance coming back over the bridge from the hospital right there at that intersection to get quality, in my opinion, quality service to our residents down there and our visitors. I have video. I've seen it, unfortunately, of a house fire, completely consumed a house a couple years back because we were 14 minutes before the first engine got there. Engines are governed due to their weight, plus or minus 2 miles per hour at 60 for our aerial truck and 68 miles an hour for our engines, okay? I promise you nobody wants to be going down Coast Guard Road 60 plus miles an hour in an engine, let alone probably 40 miles per hour, okay? LEO probably, doesn't want to hear that. But no, we want to keep safety because if we can't get there efficiently, we're not helping anybody. So when we're looking at this, and I go to this, I believe it's the next slide. Oh, sorry. Wait. So this feeds into weeks. So every 7 days for 2024. And as we track up, we get right here. Anybody want to guess what that peak is right there?
July 4th.
Memorial Day weekend. Close. July 4th is the next big bar.
Yeah.
So I'm wanting to point out these weeks right here. We see a little slump. This is the first week of May, second week of May, and then we roll into that week as we get into Memorial Day weekend. We're seeing an increase of our calls. This is, again, EMS, but this shows because that's our bulk majority. And as we go through, we see it start coming back down. These 3 weeks here, Labor Day weekend is right there, okay? So what we've done, what we did last year, and what we're hoping to continue to do this year is utilize a part-time employee from the Wednesday before Memorial Day weekend, okay, at Station 1 to Labor Day. And I say this because we're running 2 ambulances, which is taking 4 personnel out of this town, okay? Taking those 4 personnel out of this town, we were left with 4 firefighters, 2 on each truck. Quick stab of how many people we need to actually enter a burning structure.
6.
We need 4 on a truck initial arriving, okay, to be compliant with all your state, federal, local laws. But we're getting 2 there. On those calls where we had structural response in the 20, there was 7 structure calls. Of those 7 calls, on 2 of those calls, we actually had 4 people on an engine first arriving. So out of the other 5, we did not have full staffing on our engines because they were handling EMS calls. So what we're looking to do, instead of trying to get for full-time employees, we're utilizing our part-time employees for our seasonal peak. So when our ambulances are running those EMS calls, we at least have some staffing at Station 1 to help offset those other calls for service and the fire calls, okay? That's 104 days at 1,248 hours, roughly balances out to about $10,000, depending on the hourly average of who's working that day, so. Ocean rescue operations, April 1 to May 4th, 4 guards. We staff up May 5th through May 20th for 5 guards. Full deployment, which is going to occur that Wednesday again before Memorial Day weekend. 5 roaming, 2 stationary with 7 guards total. And we run that through August 10th. After that, we start skeleton crewing it back down. That's due to both the staff up and staff down is due to call volume, also due to employees available to do that task. And so we get our college students back that first week of May typically. We get full rosters when we start getting towards the end of May with our other guards coming back from their primary jobs. New equipment we're looking at this year, on the beach tram, I have Stokes baskets. With the Tacomas, we're able to, in those incidents where we have to pull somebody who's maybe not capable of coming out on their own of the water, deploy a Stokes basket off the ocean rescue truck rather than waiting for one of the 2 that we've got at station 1 or 2 to help scoop them out of the water. It helps drain the water as well. The ones on the rescues are not forgiving when it comes to draining of water. Night vision goggles. This is not the $40,000, $50,000 Navy SEAL. This is simply, we've had a few calls, again, tracking those calls. Tropical Storm Debbie was one of them. I remember another one from 17th Street, Chief Walker and I were on, but we had limited visibility at sunset and at night. Looking to have these are the $200 ones off Amazon. You see them maybe on the TikTok shop, whatever. They are something that does not come in from the TikTok shop. I don't want nobody to think that. But coming from Amazon, so we're going to utilize those to see how they work, and then tourniquets on the beach strand for if they get the unfortunate fins from surfboards. Those are pretty gruesome, but our guards can apply those. Also, if we're out on the jet skis, they'll be in the jet skis as well, so we can apply those quickly. There's some of the pictures from last year, junior guards, top left. Some training that occurred throughout the year. Our guards down below, and then the unfortunate sound furniture fire where consumed a large amount of night. So, future safety concerns. Red, yellow, green. Response time to and on Coast Guard Road. This is a larger project that has been going on for 4 years. And so some of these slides that are coming out, this data we have worked on, we have compiled, we have done a lot of stuff in, but we're kind of sitting still again. That's your first safety concern as we're looking at safety for our citizens and visitors to Emerald Isle. Fire Station 1 built 1993, showing some signs of needing some serious repairs. Last year, Joe Smith and I worked together to get at least one side of it refaced due to rusting and holes in it at the bottom, normal corrosion from 1993. It's aging. We did do some updates inside, the fire crews did, trying to take pride in the kitchen, day room, dining areas. Staffing, full-time and part-time. This is something to keep on your radar. We're gathering the metrics each year, and that goes back to that heat map. Seeing where that heat map's at, where our call location's at, how many times we actually have appropriate staffing here on the island, and then salary adjustments to stay competitive. As we all know, we started this. I've got 1 full-time opening in my department now. We actually had 2, had 1 filled. Both of them left Emerald Isle to go to higher paying jobs. 1 across the bridge in Western Carteret and 1 at New Bern at Carolina East Hospital. I do everything, and Chief Coffey does everything along with the captains as far as training, the culture, keeping, all those other smaller things that are kind of overlooked in some places on the radar. So we try to improve training that we're giving them. We're trying to send them to schools, to network, to bring back to Emerald Isle. Maybe somebody else is doing something. But we're redlining. We're getting to a point where there's not much more internally that can be done. So looking at making those salary adjustments to keep some of our hardworking employees here that we've put some time into already. FY 26-27, ambulance remount, estimated right now, $400,000. That is that one apparatus that is currently off for repair. So looking to remount that. We can remount one time on our ambulances, and then we do have to fully get a whole new box and chassis. Yes, sir. Yes. So a remount on an ambulance, so your ambulance is currently diesel engines, 200,000 give or take, that's probably on the high end. You actually take the box off, so the patient care area, the big square, you pull that off, it gets updated, new lights, new cabinetry, new handles, new flooring, kind of, remodeled. And then they slide a new cab chassis underneath of it, of our choice, new. So it'd be a Dodge or a Ford or Chevy, whatever is best as far as dependability on for us. We do have a long round trip, so 30 minutes to the hospital, dropping them off back here. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on which hospital they're going to. Diesel engine would be, in my opinion, the best thing for us to get as far as the durability and getting the service life out of it. So an ambulance remount, again, that's on the high side, 400,000. I say high side today. I don't know what it's going to do when we start talking this. But it's about, I would say, half to 2/3 the price of a brand new ambulance.
You can only do that once.
Yes, one time. We can only remount an ambulance one time, and that is law. So I mentioned some of that data. Now, for everybody looking at this data, at the top there, this is up till 2021. This data is coming from the Emergency Services Task Force team. That team has yet to meet in 2024 due to scheduling conflicts and some obstacles that the town manager and I ran into along with Candace, and can't remember who all was on that field trip that day. So this map here, this shows back in 2021 our permanent population. As you see there again, we're looking at as far as all the way down here on the east end, getting in around Station 2. As we move up, of course, Arches Creek, got about 1,400. And as we go down here, got about 1,100, 1,200, okay? Maybe asking what the green, blue, and yellow is. Green, 0 to 4 minute response time. Okay, this is all done through ArcGIS. Takes into account our miles per hour on the roads, gated communities, any other obstacles we may be seeing, speed humps, speed bumps. The blue is your 4 to 8 minutes, okay? So as we see blue, really starts right there at Coast Guard Road. All right, anything outside of that green is above 4 minutes. And as we get down to here, it's taking 8 minutes. Everybody's traversed Coast Guard Road. It is twisty, it is turny. You want to practice safety on it. We get into here, that's big yellow right there, lands in. Right there is 8 to 12 plus minutes. Okay, this was in 2021. So again, that's based off of permanent population alone. Part of the ESTF was identifying a better, more balanced response zone. In prior, Emerald Isle practiced a from center out response mode. We were wanting to shift to a outward in, all right? And as we shifted that outward in, this map demonstrates that. Station 2 stays where it's at. All the way down to East End, 4 minutes. All the way up here is 4 minutes. I will say right here, disclaimer, this yellow is only based off of response from this station, ArcGIS team. We were fortunate to have a member on staff during that time, Greg Flynn, and he was only able to pinpoint it from one station rather than overlay these two stations. But your blue here in the middle, the maximum time is 5.5 minutes. All right, so again, keeping with that 4 to 8 minutes, 4 plus to sub 8 minute, your blue there is actually 5.5 minute total time. Yes, sir.
I don't mean to derail his or steal your thunder, but if you're paying attention to this map today, what we're saying is Fire Station 2 stays where it's at with a $3 million FEMA-funded rebuild. We need to move Fire Station 1 or our Emergency Operations Center to the western end of the island. And then our plan would be either to maintain the current EMS building in the center and start with that seasonally, but the ultimate goal would be to have 3 stations, and those that were on the ESTF Emergency Services Task Force Committee see clearly that there's a phase one to this, which is moving from the center out to outward in. That should happen. And then what we could do is use our current EMS building and have our additional ambulatory unit there. You run it during that May to October, September period. And then what we see is that continued growth will allow that to become our third or central satellite station. Is that not an accurate description?
That's correct. So with your other, moving towards to the west, that's where that red dot for our fire station would be there. So that is focusing on the outward in concept rather than a center out. Moving on to that second one, Fire Station 1. These were pictures taken last week. That in the bottom left on that first picture, that's what we were experiencing in a little bit larger of a volume on the south-facing wall, Emerald Drive-facing wall. We've been replacing the doors. The two south-facing doors had to be replaced last year due to rotting out from rust. Insulation on the inside, that there's several other areas, and then cramped quarters. The unfortunate aspect of this is I was on the team that built that truck that's sitting right there. That is our newest engine currently, and we spec'd the fire truck to fit into a bay. We spec'd a $500,000 fire truck to fit into space constraints. That truck could have been spec'd better if we had the ability to store it in a better place, is what I'm going to on that. So it still works great. We make it function. We've added some different adapters, different things to it equipment-wise to help it out. Going to the second yellow, I put Emerald Isle first because I always put Emerald Isle first for that fact. But I was hoping when I pulled all this stuff here, and these numbers that you see there listed, they are in order, okay? That is our salary for a paramedic firefighter at the top. Morehead City, that's a firefighter medic. Atlantic Beach, Pine Shores, Western Carteret, all the same, firefighter medics. So when looking at the call volume that we're serving, the type calls we're serving at 937, I'm looking at this number here. I said full-time employees, for lack of a better term, jump ship for more money. So putting the Emerald Isle up there, hoping that we didn't fall at the bottom, but unfortunately we did. And I pulled these four, because over the last 6 months, here's the advertisements. Morehead still has a spot open. Atlantic Beach still has a spot open. Pine Shores still has a spot open, and Western Carteret still has a spot open. Yep. So here's all their advertisements. Unfortunately, Morehead didn't have theirs in no picture, so I couldn't quite grab it like I grabbed the rest. 1,548 EMS calls Western Carteret ran in 2024. Atlantic Beach, 526, significantly less than what we run. Morehead City, 3762, deserve every penny. Pine Shores, 255. Emerald Isle, 59,330 as the minimum base salary at 937 EMS calls ran. So when I compare all these numbers, it makes for very tough discussions with employees. Again, as far as our FCAP plan, as far as saying, hey, here's this training, you can do this, fire inspections, field training officer to better our EMS response overall. We've got all that stuff in place to try to make those employees stay, those people stay. We're getting to the point now where there's not much more before coming to for another line item, just, I don't know for what, to try to get some of those paramedic firefighters that do cover all of the calls that we run to keep them here in Emerald Isle. Any questions?
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Chief Mathias?
Question, just on the, it might be more of a map question, but what's the update for this board on the land where we're at as far as it just, can you update us for the fire station number 1?
We have to be careful what we say publicly because you are allowed to go into closed session and discuss the acquisition of real property, which would help put you in the strongest negotiating position. But currently today, we need to reassemble the Emergency Services Task Force, which consists of 2 commissioners, the mayor and the Emergency Services team, to determine what next steps may be. We did not find a suitable path forward with the state purchasing back some of our own restricted property, and that really almost stalls our conversation. So we need to get back into that Emergency Services Task Force, whether we want to do that later January, early February, and have a conversation about next steps. Great question, but I'm sorry, I can't speak more.
That's good.
Articulate.
That's kind of got me going here. There was another question too. I was on that board. I've been on it for the last 4 years, and I'm just trying to bring everybody up as much as I can on that part of it. One of the threats that we talk about is the time that we discussed was 6 minutes, I think, for brain damage, and Coast Guard Road seems to be a threat. And I didn't think about it the last 4 years I was sitting on this board, and I don't know if this is a possibility or not, but land is the biggest problem that we can't find the land to put the type of fire station we want to put in the area that we want to put it at. But maybe a short-term option might be for like 3 or 4 months out of the year when we got those high peaks, like that one graph you showed there was maybe like these construction workers do, where there's maybe the parking lot up there or somewhere in that area, we put a satellite office. And this is just a thought going forward, that we have a spot that an ambulance could park at in one of those places for 3 or 4 months out of the year where they would have air conditioning and even sleeping quarters in it. Just something to think about, and you probably already thought this out, but when I was sitting here listening to the stories and stuff, I thought maybe this might be something. So can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so along with that land, as far as finding land for a structure to go, it's just about as hard finding a commercial property that's not being utilized or not being, changing business hands, especially for the summer peak season. Haven't extended that to any commercial property owners as far as saying, hey, I know what some of the rates are for some of our commercial properties as far as just leasing that space for a month at a time. And
This just hit me. We should talk to Mr. Watson with the new building he built right there at Reed and Islander. Might be a perfect spot to position something, because the real issue is not just leaving the unit there, it's keeping that unit under cover. And then there's some other factors, but we've had some growth in that area that may serve the community really well if there was a chance to do something. It's getting as close to Coast Guard or down Coast Guard as we can.
Well, I can speak to the EMS side of the house. What you're looking at is what in the EMS industry they call system status management. And if you're looking at employee retention, putting them in a truck parked somewhere in a parking lot is not a good idea. They're going to walk away from you quicker for that better pay than they are. At least now they got a fire station to get into. If you're putting them in a truck using system status management and sending them out, deploying that resource for response, then
Gotcha. We also looked
the
at,
likelihood of walking away is a whole lot higher.
so the ESTF team also looked at renting a residential property for that 4-month period, blocking out and making a contractual agreement. And that's still a choice, because they really need a place to shower, they need a place to cook a hot meal, and then be able to respond as quickly as possible. So we're looking at those choices too.
And with that, you also have to, if the apparatus is running, I'm not going to steal anything from PD, but you're putting those engine hours on a very large piece of asset. If it's not running, it needs to be plugged in so that it keeps the medications cold within those trucks that are vital to life safety as well. So there's a couple of different variances there as far as our apparatus versus PD's apparatus, but we're still looking at engine hours to keep things cold, to keep things running, and you're putting that wear and tear on those vehicles as well.
Yeah, it all makes sense. What, on the last couple you left, or is there a number that you've kind of determined that people, firemen or EMS, will jump ship at as far as, can you break it down more? Is there, like, say $5,000, for example? Do you see people walk out if they can make $5,000 more a year than the other ones?
Mark, could you put that slide for the salaries back up, or even the Facebook posting?
It's less than 5.
Yeah.
So
According to that.
the one that I did speak of that went to Western Carteret there, Western Carteret, if you see, we're at 59, they're at 65, and that exact thing occurred firsthand here. We lost an employee who had been with us a little over a year. We actually worked with him. We helped him get his fire certification. He was a new medic, put him through our FDO process as far as training, you know, making sure he's fully capable in the back of that ambulance for that 30-minute transport or 45-minute transport. Worked with him to get his fire certification classes, investing time and knowledge and effort into this employee, and for $5,000 hopped across the way, even though they're running almost 50% more calls than we are. So even at $5,000, that's on the backside. We're making sure the culture, making sure our training, everything on the small end that, you know, obviously can't approve a pay raise, that we take care of in-house is affected. But he was very clear that he loved here. He still works here part-time, and I thank him for that. But he was going because he wanted to make more money as a firefighter medic.
Chief, how much did that set of gear cost us?
What's that?
The set of gear we put him in, how much did that cost?
Well, total, you're looking at a set of turnout gear alone is $3,200. Your helmet is another $500. Your boots are $400, not to mention your hood and your gloves. So you're looking about $4,500 to $5,000 when it's all said and done. And that doesn't take into account our extra territory, the Atlantic Ocean, for life jackets, helmets, water rescue helmets, and then uniforms. So.
And then you said y'all helped him get all this training, all that. How much is that?
So, in relation to that, we're fortunate. That would be your fire certification is now set into a block, but we work with the community college. But it's time. That's where we pull in a part-timer. So if he's on shift and he's, that employee is covering or going to a class, we're utilizing that part-time employee to make sure the service level stays the same here in Emerald Isle. So, you can gauge about $10,000, $15,000 as far as hourly wise, depending on the employee that we backfill part-time wise with.
Gotcha.
But I want to address some of the powerful things we're doing as leaders. So to be fair and reasonable, I think that the fire department should publicly share with you what happens if I become ocean rescue certified, what benefits do I get, what we've done to be as creative as possible to have LEOs, cross-trained certified swimmers. This option exists for all of our staff, whether they're public works, parks and recreation, maintenance. So if you can address some of the good things we've done to enhance our numbers, and we promote that as well.
Yeah, so a large part of that shoulder season as we go into the ocean, summer season, should I say, those shoulder seasons as we're talking about April and the 1st of May, those 4 guards that are out there for skeleton crew are largely coming from fire and EMS and police. Those are the ones that have the ability to swim, and they're 100% capable of swimming just as our lifeguards swim each year. They have to pass the same test. For the incentive for our full-timers, fire, EMS, and police, that's a $2,400 annual stipend, so $200 a month if they pass that rescue swimmer. And so they swim each year. So that is one thing that comes up each year. Hey, you're ready for your swim. You continue want to do this upcoming season. And so that's $2,400 extra if they're willing to go swim, put in the training, the time, then they come to our training course. We take everybody back through, even our returning lifeguards, through a training course in case anything has changed that year. On top of that, flying unmanned aircraft, we have a $500 stipend. Myself, I think police department has 1 certified officer, and then of course Mark, the ability to do that, we have a stipend for that. So in that event, if we're looking for somebody on the beach strand, or police department is looking for somebody who may be running from them, we'll be able to deploy a UAV in the sky to help out with that search. So that's a $500 stipend that we have in place for those employees that are going out and wanting to better themselves and better our community here in Emerald Isle.
Thanks, sir.
Anything else?
Any other questions for the chief?
Thank you all very much.
Greatly appreciate it. You and yours, sir. Thank you very much. All right. Takes care of that. 10:45. We're ahead of schedule once again. Great job, everybody, on that. Turn it back over to the board for goals, ideas, some more what went right, what went wrong, final thoughts. what do you want from staff, what don't you want from staff, all that good stuff. We got plenty of time. What's good, what's bad? Got 2 hours.
Got what?
2 hours.
2 hours.
If you want them. Got 2 minutes, 2 hours.
It was a great presentation again by everybody, I have to admit that.
Yeah,
And,
very good.
Very, very eye-opening. It's like we got some work cut out for us in decision-making to make for this.
Do we have any preliminary thoughts on what the COLA adjustments are going to be this year?
We try to tie it so that, I feel comfortable. We watch this consumer price index and we look at the South Urban index, and so we try to map that. Traditionally, we've started out, we look at a 2%. I think it was hovering right around 3. So we'll look at that, look at the budget, and sometimes we'll just start, with what we're seeing. And then as we're putting the budget together, we're trying to balance, we're trying to work all the initiatives, and that's where we'll talk to the board and, we'll look at it again in March for sure.
Understood. Thank you.
Anyone else?
What's the threshold for when it requires a board approval versus manager's authorization? For
For purchases. So let's see, we have the formal amounts, I'm having a blank right now. For a contract, it's $30,000. So contracts will bring 30,000. And then formal, we follow the state statute. So for like 90,000 is equipment. So statute, and then, formal construction, which would be well above 30,000 we would bring to the board. So usually any kind of significant purchase, we're going to bring to the board anyway, just because it's noteworthy and we want to involve the board, so.
And then there's a 10,000, if I'm not mistaken, for purchasing just general item, single items?
No.
Trailer.
Yeah, like a trailer, we generally don't, we put these in the budget because they're significant and, but by purchasing policy, as long as it's budgeted, we wouldn't have to. So once it gets to that formal amount for a contract for 30 or for a large, a vehicle or something like that, we'll bring it. But if it's budgeted and approved.
If I'm not mistaken, I would say that I think Mr. Brown was asking, what are the purchasing policy limits? And so we would gladly send you that back out. It's already listed, and we'll give it to you. But what Laura's referencing are budgeted items. So are you asking, what's the authority of that chair if there's a budgeted item or a non-budgeted item? So is it budgeted or non-budgeted? I'm trying to get to the center of your question.
Not budgeted.
So the authority, like, what are my daily operational limits within the purchasing policy is what he's asking for the managerial seat.
Yeah, I would say 30,000 then, based on our, I'll send you the limits, and I have a little cheat sheet, so you don't have to have the full, it's just the bullet thresholds for you.
Thank you.
I think the reason I said it that way is a lot of times we'll bring things that aren't required, we just do it out of, business operations and to include the board. So sometimes it's not because it met the limit, it's just we're inclusive.
Question, Chief, I have a question, Bill. Just thinking about the fire department pay and stuff again too, each year, is there, like with the government, is there step climbs with your fire department, like a year 1 fireman is X, year 2 is this, year 3 is a little bit higher pay, or is it based on their qualifications and their ranking, where their pay's at?
It's based off their qualifications and what knowledge and what classes, initiative that they go after. We have a fire career advancement plan. So if they decide to go obtain their fire inspector 2 in the state of North Carolina, that comes with a percentage. But it is based off of, rather than, a time stamp of how many years they've been here, the town has that in place, as far as not called step grades. But if that employee wants to go out and better their self and continue to grow and sharpen their skills, there's an opportunity there that there is a FCAP in place for them to gain that percentage in the classes where it would be beneficial to our citizens and our visitors. So
just to make sure I understand right in my little brain here. So if if I'm a brand-new fireman and I get hired on, I've been here 5 years, and I do nothing but just a brand-new fireman, and I'm on board, I've been 5 years now. And a new guy comes in, and he's a brand-new fireman too, and his first year, we have the same qualifications. I've been here 5 years, been 1 year. We're making the exact same pay as a 5-year guy, as a 1-year guy. Is that correct?
Based off any additional COLAs. So COLAs are added, each year, then
Okay.
those COLAs adjust with that same firefighter who's been there.
Right.
But as far as they have the same qualifications, yes, they might have knowledge of our districts, but as far as putting any additional effort, festivals, marathon, time back, public education, that's just events here that we look at to add back to, or if they want to get into, become a rescue swimmer and go out on the beach train and help us in those shoulder seasons where we don't have, full staffing for our beach train yet. That shows that initiative where, they can gain that additional percentage. But yes, sir, it is correct. So somebody who is a firefighter EMT comes in, we've been here 5 years, and then we have an opening or we expand, bring on somebody else for another firefighter EMT, that person is making the same thing as the other. But again, the opportunity's there in front of them to gain additional pay.
Right. If they put the time in or the effort in, they can make some extra money. No
Yes, sir.
problem. Yeah. Is that the standard for our area? Other towns do the same thing, or is that something special for Emerald Isle where you can make more money that way?
I would say it's a 50-50 split. I think it goes back, I personally think it goes to a culture basis, initiative driven, what you want to do for your community. Also, I've seen our community give back here during Florence. I'm very thankful for, what I had lost in Florence and what I was able to, what the community came together. Obviously wasn't near, but it was something more than other communities would do. So I look at it more as a culture driven factor. Every day is a job interview. You come in the door, do the job. Hey, that piece of paper is on the floor. I'm going to pick it up right now. I'm not going to say, oh, C shift's coming in the next day.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the question on the floor is, does Emerald Isle offer the same opportunity as Western, AB, Atlantic for the chance to build up your salary annually? Is that your question? You're comparing us to other stations?
Right, I was just seeing.
So not how many people within our organization. So if I work at Western, can you answer it that way?
That was the 50-50. So in some departments, they do have like what they call step increases for year after year, your time and grade increases. And some departments solely put it forth of, hey, here's these classes, here's where our department would like somebody in because it would be beneficial to incident call response to our area. And so that's where those classes are kind of articulated from to better our community, to better our response to mitigate emergency scenes.
Yeah, I follow you. Thank you.
So,
Those employees who are still at the same level are receiving longevity pay, though, for years in service.
that is correct.
To answer Mr. Brownlow's question, on the screen is your purchasing policy that's on the Town of Emerald Isle's website. Mark Cruz has taken that direct link and emailed it to the elected officials' email address and CC'd all department heads while we were sitting here, so you can reference that at a later date. And Laura can expound upon, there's the $1,000 threshold, $5,000, and what she explained on the 30 to 90. It should be in your inbox waiting for you.
All right. Thanks again, everybody. Anybody else? Final thoughts?
I would just like to thank everybody for these great presentations. It's been very informative and helpful. I think the $6-point-something billion question is going to be how the property valuations shake out and what that's going to mean to the revenue side of our equation. I think we're probably going at this right, sticking to the revenue neutral line to the maximum extent we can, and then adjust the, I'll call it the expense side, what we're spending, to try to fit into whatever that's going to be. So I'm just mindful of the insurance cost that's going to come with it. And I think we need to keep that in mind as we spend the citizens' money, that they're going to have some strains on their checkbooks too. So thank you, everybody. This has been super helpful. I appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
Anything anybody needed that you just didn't ask for?
We ask a lot of you, so we need to know what you need to help you do your job, most efficient.
I mean, is there anything that you were like, oh, man, I would like to have, but I'm just the climbing of the board, I'm not even gonna ask? Is there anything like that anyone needed that you could do your job better with? Remote control life jackets, something?
No. I would much rather a human being go out there and calm down that panicked person than that remote control.
Just hit them in the head with a remote
I
control.
mean, obviously, and that's where I come up and I've learned, and I love data metrics. And so personnel, you know, for us to have a 2 on an ambulance and 4 on a fire truck, perfect situation, you know, and as we go forward, talking about Station 2, you know, trying to future-proof that for whoever's sitting here next or whoever's up there next down the road when we're not here. But personnel is the biggest thing for us, but I can't say, hey, here's our seasonal. I mean, we're unique. We really are. I talked to Chief Randall at Swansboro yesterday. We're working on some stuff as far as communication-wise because right now we can't talk to Onslow County. So it's a safety factor in my eyes. If we go over there and respond to a fire, we have a good working relationship, him and I, as well as Chief Peniel at Western, as well as Chief Whitley at Indian Beach. Basing that personnel off of the data metrics, to me, and we're gathering that and putting it together and saying, hey, my job is to say, here's where we're lacking, okay? I mentioned that 2021 Department of Insurance OSFM rating that's coming here in about a year. We got dinged on 3 things as a fire department, all right? 2 of which, one being personnel, second one being deployment analysis, which means where Station 1 is right now, we are not getting down Coast Guard Road quick enough. The third one being training. I can say since 2021 to January 2025, training has improved rapidly. I can control that, okay? We can control that as far as the department is concerned. But everything I gather and everything I put together, here's the matrix. I want everybody to see it. I want y'all to see it as elected officials, the public to see it. We have some concerns. So, I mean, if that was the question for me, I would definitely say personnel. I'm not going to say, yeah, we need, you know, 8 there and 8 there. That's, you know, blowing it out of the water. Putting it together to where we can, hey, we've nipped it in the bud, really, and we've kind of evened it out. So.
Thank you.
Was there anything on Parks and Rec that needed to be presented? We did the floor. I didn't know if there's anything else.
As far as parks is concerned, I appreciate the support of the walkways. I think it's really important that we continue to replace a minimum of 2 walkways per year to stay ahead of that. But no, we tackled a lot in 2024, so I don't really have any major ask. There might be some things coming forward, like an automatic basketball goal lifter, just because we have so many sports played in there right now, but that's not a huge ask that needs to be presented necessarily right now. But thank you.
All right. Last call.
Well, we talked a lot about purchases and costs and stuff, but I was just wanting to know more about the revenues, like here, general fund revenues. You know, we got property tax at 40%, sales tax, state plate, other sources 17%. That's like our 3rd largest sources, and like what do we get from the ABC stores?
We're getting about 200 and, I think it tapped out at 245,000. So it is a big revenue, and that does fluctuate, you know, with use.
It's not as good as it was during COVID, huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you do see it go up and down. It's going down a little bit this year. I think the ABC board actually sent us a notification. They're holding back some distributions for their construction, their building construction, so they're doing some investment in their buildings. But that is a big number. The other big one is electricity sales tax, so that category is in your other state distributions. That's the other big hitter. State distributions that come in are much smaller, telecommunications, video, those things are going away, smaller distributions. We don't see those as much. And then the service fees, the ambulance service fees, the park and recs use fees, development permit, you know, that's pretty minimal, but we do have the other fees that are in that pie chart as well. So our user fees, and our fee schedule would be something that we can always look at.
And we had that contingency fee this year. Did we use that for anything else? I know we touched on a couple of things.
We, I'm having a blank right now. We talked about using, I haven't come back to the board. We talked about it for the ramps, for the stormwater pump ramps. But we're gonna try to use Public Works budget to cover that cost. And if we, have a problem, we're gonna come to the board and ask for use of contingency. So any of that contingency would come from your authority. And, what did we use it for? The generator. The Fire Station 1 generator was what we used it for. So that's sitting in the budget. We won't touch it if we don't need it. If we have enough cost savings throughout the budget and we don't have to cross departments, we won't ask for it. But if we come to a problem or a big equipment need, we would come to the board to ask to use it.
That might help fund that extra walkway that we could use.
Potentially, yes, yeah. Yes, we have two items, the Tahoe that we just talked about, for the Charger that's blown up, if you will, the one with the bad engine, and the replacement for that vehicle, or the, like you said, we could certainly look at that. I think I don't know the number by heart, I apologize, I don't have my numbers with me, but I can get back to you on that for sure.
And how much do we make from the parking lot fees?
250,000, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, yeah, right around 250,000. So that's a revenue that we definitely count on, and we utilize that for the parking lots, for the pumping, like you mentioned earlier, the servicing the bathrooms and the lifeguards and the whole thing, so that's supporting that.
How often do we pump those restrooms? At each regional parking lot?
It's quite frequent.
Each
summertime.
bathhouse is pumped out every quarter. And we had to do that just even when Alicia was here because we were having issues with what they were putting down there, solids building up, so we were getting clogs. And so we went ahead and just scheduled for every quarter, beginning every quarter, they come out and pump it out.
Prior to 20, it was every 6 months.
Yes.
And then with COVID and the influx of people that we started getting, we had to go to every quarter because it was just filling up that quickly.
We actually had to do an additional pump at Western in '24 as well because it filled up and was overflowing.
Yes, I'm thinking with those parks up on 58, they're gonna be coming over here, might not be parking, they might even have a trolley, transportation system that drops them off, and they're gonna be using the facilities at the expense of the taxpayers. And so that's gonna increase pumping and something else to have to.
Is there still a plan by the developers? At one time, right before my retirement, they approached Matt and I about that very issue, and we said that the parks could not accommodate that, if I'm not mistaken. That was with two of the primary developers, Matt. And so their next move at that time, and this was in '22, I don't know what happened after that, was that they were looking to purchase something for that, to set up a shuttle.
Shuttle and parking.
Yes.
What's the typical cost to pump each time?
I believe it's $900 a site. Each one is $900 each.
And what other maintenance do we do for 250? Does that money have to go back to the parking lot?
It has to go back. It can be used for the lifeguards, for the additional beach patrol, for the custodian who was there. Somebody jump in and correct me when I'm wrong here. It can be used for toilet paper, paper towels, things of that nature. It can be used for paying someone to police the parking lot.
Repairs to showers. that are constant.
Repairs to the showers. It can even be used to
Water.
offset the electricity and the water. It can also be used to reimburse the town for, it's not listed unless it's changed, but the man hours it takes to mow and maintain, weed eat, blow, pesticides, all of that can be covered with that money generated from the parking areas.
So very simply, those are revenues that come in to offset the direct expenses that result and fluctuate with the number of users. So it's the maintenance people, all the maintenance, parking lot striping, everything you can think of, down to shingles, when the door rots out, to the hot water tank, and everything that we're doing. We're taking those dollars, reinvesting them to keep that engine moving for tourism on day trippers.
And we use that full amount each year?
Yes, sir.
That doesn't even cover it, does it?
No. The recovery that we made by going to the subcontracted parking program, and these are all legitimate figures, we were charging $10 per vehicle, usually Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and we included holidays. And that had a generated cost, generated gross revenue between $125 and $150 a year, depending on that year, based on weather. And then when we took out the manpower it took at the front, and we were a cash collection situation, and we had looked at all the nuances, we were netting anywhere from 100 to 125. Utilizing the outside services, when we presented that data, it was projected to bring in 175 to 200. It not only did that, but it brought in more, which we were between 225 and 250 a year net back to the community. And it took the average cost of the paid parking person from that $10 down to approximately $8.56 per visit. So now you can go in for 2 hours when it's the $2 an hour window and pay $4. And so it really helped level those curves. And again, I want to remind everyone in the space, not a single Emerald Isle property owner should be paying a penny, because you all get 2 free parking passes. And so these are for people coming outside of our jurisdiction, non-taxpayers, to utilize those services. So we increased it, and those revenues that are coming in today aren't 100% offset. But it definitely helped us shore up the budget, because you don't want the EI taxpayer to offset or help pay for those outside services. Is that accurate for the seated and past parks directors in the room?
Yes.
And just something, I mean, appreciate the reports and the work that goes into it. Thank you for your presentations, very informative, and it helps me go back to my constituents and tell them when they ask me and grill me what's going on with the money, that I can go back and tell them. That's why I ask a lot of questions. It's not because I'm being critical of what you're doing or anything, but these are the same questions I get asked. So now, when you're providing me the answers, I can go back and provide those answers. So I appreciate that. And also, what would help me in the future when we get these kind of books is to have like a 5 year showing where we at 5 years ago, like a graph, and where it's going and why. I know inflation, we're keeping up with that. Also, the itemized list, like the source of revenues, where it comes from, how much money's coming in, and then where it's going. That would really help out, have an itemized list.
That's in the itemized budgets that we receive when we receive the final budget book. The line items are spelled out clearly.
But when we're looking at this, it helped me look at the forecast, like kind of like we're doing with the evaluation. You know, it's kind of like here's what's coming. Here, we don't know what to expect. We don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
But this is as close as we get to it. So that would be very helpful for me anyway.
So that data is already provided to you through the CAFR, and so you can look
Right.
back and you can look at the snapshot. So this meeting is preliminary to talk about your big ticket items so that we can put that data together for you. That's where the multiple meetings come from. So this is the learn to crawl so that we can walk this, so that we can run in this process. But if you look at any of the past budgets that are listed online and all the data that you received a year ago, it has that in it.
And again, I would do that, and when I get it, Friday at 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock at night, then I have to try to dig all that up myself. But if it's already available in the book, then it's right there. It sure would help out. I know it's available. I can go do my own research, but it takes time, a lot of time. And but I'm just saying that for me, but it's all right. Thank you for everybody's efforts on this.
Another thing, trash cans. You had said something a while back about it. We've got Emerald Isle residents, you get 1 trash can. Then you got these houses out on the beach that have got 6 trash cans. It seems like somebody needs to be being charged for some trash cans.
So we can absolutely do that. That would require us to do an inventory, and we would do a survey of the trash cans that are there. And I will tell you today that the process is really simple. you can make it more equitable, you will hear about that. We'll gladly do whatever you want, because if you do the general straight math, there's 6,500 parcels plus or minus that are developed. So when we're doing our billing calculations, we take the number of developed parcels, multiply it times 300. Then you would have for each and every person or property, which are really commercial,
Right.
when they have 2 and 3, they should be paying for 2 and 3. And if you do that, you can either build up your reserves into that solid waste, or you could potentially reduce the overall cost. So instead of 300, for example, it could come down to 290 if everybody paid per can.
Or
If
it
you would-
could pave the roads for those people to get to that house.
To the
I mean,
road
what
for
do
the
y'all think
trash
about
cans.
that?
So
I
if you
love that
want us to
idea.
look at that, we'll
love it.
gladly do it.
I got one trash can,
I got one.
and you got houses that have got 6 trash cans.
I brought that up earlier. in
And it's an
2024.
easy, yeah, it's
I
an
mean,
easy
if it's
fix.
easy, it's fair.
So we're not going to use the term easy, because easy is relative. We will give you the straight facts, and then when you make those changes, we'll absolutely give you the numbers. We can go out, count all the cans, and we can probably do that in the next month, and I'll put that on our to-do list. But
I think that we
I would
need
like
to
a
act
motion.
quickly if we're going to do that.
I would like a motion from the board telling us to do that.
Cool.
And then we'll bring you the details back, and then we would like a motion from the board to enact those changes, because we would want you to be unified in that conversation.
I'd like to make a motion to do an inventory on trash cans.
Trash cans.
For,
For rental properties,
let's do this thing. Yeah.
let's,
For
for vacation rental properties,
Say for any-
in comparison to,
Hold on, time out.
It's per parcel, you got 1 can
Per
or you got
parcel.
5 cans,
Okay.
doesn't matter what they do at the house.
May I
You got
make a
1 or 5,
suggested
am I right or
motion?
Yes,
wrong?
please.
Please make a motion to authorize staff or ask staff to inventory your trash cans and come back with an accurate trash can count for you, and we will gladly do that. It has nothing to do with rental or residential.
Okay.
It has to do per stop, and we'll gladly do that assessment and bring you that fact back.
And that's residential only, correct?
That is all we provide. On a commercial account, you're to do your own front loader style system.
I'd like to make a motion
Motion
to do
amended
an
to-
inventory of trash cans on EI.
All right, per parcel, motion's on the floor by Commissioner Sawyer, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried, thank you.
Good job, Josh. Get out of here.
Anything else, anyone else?
make a motion to adjourn?
Motion's on the floor by Commissioner Sanderson to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all, see you again in 8 hours, 5, 7 and a half hours.